a great pleasure right now to welcome back to our show a woman who's been with us several times before on several different places where we've done this show, and it's always great to talk with our friend Lois Travalena, of course, the wife of the very talented Fred Travalena, who is also with us a few times on our radio show, a great comedian, actor, singer, impressionist and composer. But particularly this time of year, we want to remember Fred because he wrote so many great songs, particularly Christmas songs we're going to be featuring on the program. But we're going to chat with Lois Travalena for a few minutes, find out what she's been up to. And Lois, I know it's been a while since we did this on air, so great to have you back with us. How have you been?
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and you're so nice to keep following up and calling me during the holiday. I touch base with people all over the country, radio stations, and they've been so sweet and so nice. 9 times out of 10, they know who Fred was, the impressionist, not the singer, not the songwriter, but the impressionist.
Right.
Well, and that's great. But then there's a few who said, Fred who? And then I want to die.
I know.
I think the whole world should know, but Fred was one of 5 top impressionists at the time when he was working Vegas and the Tonight shows and the game shows and the whatever he did on television. And he was labeled as the man of 1,000 voices. But in reality, I think one time I sat down and counted them, and there were over 400.
Wow.
But it was a good label, man of 1,000 voices. Sure. Well, he was. And I'm finding things, because I look at his videotapes when he was on television. I was the one who stayed home and recorded. And or else if the station gave him a recording, that was great too. But most recently, I have to tell you this funny story if you have a minute.
Sure.
He wasn't being an impressionist. He wasn't being a singer. He was being a political know-it-all, I call him. He worked for the National League of Families for over 10 years, trying to get the men back from Vietnam, our POW and MIAs. And I put a tape in a couple weeks ago, and here was this TV show up in Seattle called the Town Meeting, and the host had a audience around him, and he introduced Colonel Hopper, retired from the Army, Colonel, I think it was Valance from, he was with the security, and he was with Air Force, and then Fred Travalena. The camera went to Fred Travalena. Well, I about died. I went, what? He's going to talk about this situation on television with these professionals? I'm telling you, he blew me away. He knew it all. He knew it all. He was so dedicated to helping and trying to get those men back. It was really something else.
And you didn't know that he did the show till you found the tape?
Right. Well, maybe I knew at the time.
Right, but you'd forgotten that he did it. Right. That's great. Yeah.
I was here at home with 2 kids, 2 boys, taking them to and from school and participating and helping them, blah, 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 whatever. And so when he said, honey, I'm going to be gone up to Seattle for a few days, I'll be back. And then, well, I knew he was working. He might have had a concert or something while he was up there. And then the TV show called him too. So I never know. I never know what I'm going to find on these tapes. I have over 600 that I've dubbed down to DVDs.
Well, I know there's a channel on YouTube, Fred Travalena channel, which I know you and your sons post up different videos from time to time. And I found one recently. I didn't realize it was on YouTube, that great show, The Copycats, which Fred was part of. It was briefly aired. It wasn't on a long time, but he was on a few of those episodes.
Yes, he was on 4. They did 7 shows, and he was on 4 of them.
Yeah.
And you saw it where?
I just found it on YouTube. It popped up on my YouTube one day, and I watched it, and they were doing a whole thing on the Beatles. All the copycats did impressions of, I think he did both John and Paul together, like Paul they did McCartney. A split screen. It was great.
Yeah. I found pictures of Paul McCartney, and I put them next to Fred, and I swear to God they were brothers.
Oh, yeah, could have been.
He looked so much like Paul McCartney. It was adorable. Yeah.
The Italian Beatle.
There you go. There you go. They just had a program about the Beatles on TV, too.
I see, a documentary. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen clips of it, but yeah.
Really good. Did you see that beautiful woman with Tony Bennett the other night? Gaga.
Oh, I remember they made that show a few months ago. I did not get to see the actual broadcast, but I saw clips when they did a story on it. So Gaga and Tony together. I guess they've been friends for a while.
Wow.
And,
but there's a man who is 95, celebrating his 95th birthday, and I believe he has Alzheimer's.
He does, 60 Minutes did a whole interview with him. And, when he's not singing, he's kind of out of it. But when he's got up to the piano, they show the rehearsal, and he remembers all the lyrics. It's amazing.
He does. Yeah. He's amazing. Amazing, yeah. So, but anyway, back to Fred and his music. It is just a lot of people I know would play it if they just heard one.
Yeah, let's just remind the folks out there, because Fred, as you mentioned, not only the other things you talked about, singer, comedian, actor, but a great songwriter, composer, and I know you've been working on, or he was working on a Sinatra musical, and I know you're continuing that. We'll talk about that in a minute, but a Christmas Suite, which we're going to feature some of the songs on the show tonight. He wrote a whole album of Christmas music.
Yes, he did. A whole album, 10 beautiful songs. Whether it's snow in Central Park or shopping in New York, shopping anywhere at Christmas time.
Right.
Christmas on Broadway, what was that like? And, falling in love in New York City at Christmas time. All these titles, they just blow you away.
And in the style of, let's say, the American Popular Songbook. I mean, that style of music.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Popular songbook, standard type arrangements, and the orchestrations. They were unbelievable. But that's the way he grew up, and that's what he listened to. He used to tell the story. His father worked, maybe I've told you this story before, but his father worked at the log cabin in a log cabin. Is that what it was called? In New Jersey.
Oh, sure.
And they were singing waiters. And so they were both the same age, I don't know, in 1933 or somewhere around there. And so then Fred's father was still singing from time to time. And Fred said he would come home at night and read him a bedtime story, which was out of the newspaper about Frank Sinatra. That's how we learned about Sinatra.
That's where Sinatra started, right? That was one of his first gigs at that log cabin restaurant. Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and they tore it down, which was a sad thing. But and I'm of the age that I can listen to Frank Sinatra from now to doomsday, and I enjoy every song. They make you fall in love, and that's what he tried to do for people back then, let them fall in love. The singers today, between you, me, and the fence post, I can't understand their words.
No, I agree.
I don't know how they're muffled, or the microphone's in front of their face, or whatever the case may be. But back then, you understood Vic Damone, Randall, whomever, and Jack Jones.
Dean Martin and all those. Steve Lawrence, Jack
Sammy,
Jones,
Sammy, and Fred also worked to enunciate every word and every line. And when you look at and see on YouTube, you can find Fred Travalena Christmas music, and there's a clip on there, the When Snow Falls in Central Park.
Great song. Yeah.
Oh, and my boys put a video clip underneath it. So here's Fred singing this song, and When Snow Falls in Central Park, and you see the tavern, and you see the trees, and you see the snow, and the pictures match what he's saying.
Right.
But that's how he wrote. He pictured everything. He used to go out for a walk with the dogs, and he'd come back and he'd say, "Honey, I got this song. Oh my God, wait till you hear this one." Blah, blah. oh, I didn't know you were writing.
And Fred was from Long Island, because when I had him on the first time on radio, I didn't know he was from Long Island originally, where I was from. So he's a Long Island, New York guy.
Yeah, Beth Page, and what's the name of that town? I don't know. Anyway, he's oh yes, and that's why I say all the time, he wrote about what he loved, which was Christmas, but he also loved the city, and stations around the country, they can play that music just because it has New York mentioned. I mean, people in Texas sing about San Francisco or Chicago or Florida, so they can sing about New York. And you listen to the words and you can relate to it if you'd ever been to New York. Oh, it's just amazing. So we enjoy it. I enjoy it so much. I really do. So, and you mentioned the play.
I know last time we talked, you were working on continuing Fred's work on the Sinatra show, right? Sinatra play.
Right. Still working on it. Got somebody in Cleveland, producer type, a lady who has been on Broadway, and she's performed, but she's also a director. And when she read the script, she said, "Oh, Lois, we have to work on this. We have to work on this." So I'm waiting. Anytime she calls me, I'm ready to go.
Great. He already he wrote 10, 12 songs already. I mean, he had that already done. 12 songs, right?
He recorded, I think, only 6, but he wrote 23.
Oh, 23, okay.
Songs.
I know you said he wrote a whole score. Okay, great.
Oh, yeah, he did. But we never got into a studio to record all the music. But everyone who hears it, they flip out. I mean, the music sells them.
Yeah.
The storyline, it's kind of depending on what kind of a person you are. Fred wrote it because he loved the man, the voice, the singer. Other people say, "Oh, bad man, said bad words, and want to put in bad words and bad happenings."
Right.
And Fred didn't write it that way. And I will not have that. That's not how I picture Mr. Sinatra. I met him several times and loved the man, and his family, his whole family. But I had one writer, and he took it, and I'm telling you, every other sentence had a bad word in it.
Changed it, yeah. I remember you said that, yeah. You weren't happy with that first draft, right?
No, thank you. Will not do it. So that producer washed his hands in my play and said, "Can't do it." He wanted it to be a bad scene, a bad play. And I said, "No, won't do it." So, and this lady that I'm talking with, this director in Cleveland, yeah, she's the same as I am. She says, "No, this man was so terrific, and the way he sang and made people fall in love and think about their lives, and oh no, that's how we have to keep him."
Sure.
So it's going to get up one day. I just have to find a few producers who will help me, and I don't know where I'll find them. I had a couple of guys down there in Florida at one point, but I don't know what happened to them. Oh, there again. Let me tell you this one. I just pulled up a Ruth Eckerd Hall tape where Fred was performing. It was a Christmas, December show that he did
just a little bit north of us here, right?
Yeah, at Ruth Eckerd Hall. And again, blew me away. And he was giving a lot of history, which I found interesting because I don't remember him doing that in years later, but talked about how he met Bette Midler. And Bette Midler said, "You have to meet my arranger. You will love this arranger. He is so good." So she hooked him up with this arranger. Fred went to meet him. Barry Manilow.
Oh, sure.
It was Barry Manilow, her arranger at that time. But I mean, that in itself was a point.
He was her piano player when I think they started out in these kind of a weird nightclubs or something in New York back in the 70s,
Yeah.
I guess, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah. Little tiny clubs and, of course, the off-Broadway shows. And Fred was doing an off-Broadway, and that's where he met Bette Midler. She was doing one. She was in the same play that Fred was.
Yeah. Oh, they were? Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and Fred, just for people not aware, Fred does one of the best, and it's very difficult to do a good impression of Sinatra, but he does if not the best, one of the best that I've seen of, and it's on YouTube. You can still see it, I believe. Not only the older Sinatra, but like the stages of Sinatra, the younger Sinatra he does.
Yes. From the 40s all the way up.
Yeah.
I mean, it would blow people away. And Frank even said that from stage one night. Some guy was down in front of the stage and singing along with Frank as Frank was singing. And he turned around to the band and stopped the band. He said, wait a minute. And he looked at the guy. He said, hey, you. Nobody sings along or does an impression of me except Fred Travalena. you got that? I mean, the people just went crazy. But they all tried. Rich tried, and Gorshin tried, and they all tried. Now, saying that, a dear friend who was trying back then and continued to work at it, Bob Anderson.
Bob Anderson. I was just going to bring that up. I think he's doing a show at Carnegie Hall.
He is. Yeah. He is on this month, 7th. Wait a minute. Saturday night, the 4th?
It's early in the month of December as we talk. Yeah, I believe it's this week. Right.
Yeah. And he's good. But I keep saying to him, I hope somewhere in the show you put in one song as you. He is such a wonderful singer.
Great.
I have
great singer.
A couple albums of his, and again, he does the standard type orchestrated songs, and he is so wonderful. But I was going to plan to go back and see it. I wanted so badly to see it, the show, but he's going to do fine. I know he will, and that's good.
He did that show in Vegas for about a year, maybe about 5-6 years ago at some hotel.
Yeah.
I forget which one. And then he was going to do a show during the summertime at the South Point, and I would have loved to go out and see him, but they canceled it because of everything going on. So
right.
he hasn't done it in a while. But next time I'm out in Vegas and he's out there, I want to see him. I've never seen him live.
Oh,
he's great. Yeah.
He's so talented. He really is. I love him to death.
Did Fred know him? I mean, did they work together or know each other as impressionists in Vegas?
Well, yes, they knew each other. They didn't work together per se, but
right.
they did a lot of talking and laughing, of course. And but hearing him push forward to do the Sinatra act in the show, and who was it? Tony Bennett many years ago talked to him and said, because I heard this through the grapevine, and he said, you don't have to dress up. You don't have to put makeup on. We know that you sound like him.
Yeah.
And he said the same thing to Fred. You don't have to wear the makeup. Just do it.
Just do it, yeah.
And Fred started finally doing that. He did the makeups for a while, but he had a good makeup artist to help him do that. And then as time went on, it got to the point where being in a chair for 3 hours and putting makeup on really
that gets old.
It was really tough on him. So he stopped doing that, except for the makeups of the political guys.
Right, there's some videos of him as George Bush and the presidents. Very, very funny. Yeah.
Right.
Before we get too long and before we have to wrap it up, I did want to ask you a little bit. You mentioned Las Vegas, and of course, you and Fred were there for a long time, and kind of in the heyday of it for a while in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. What was that like? It must have been a lot of fun. I've only been to Vegas since the late 90s, so I don't know what it was like in those great days where you had all the entertainers were there. It's not like that anymore.
You bet. It was so wonderful. I mean, we would go. He'd finish his act. Whether it was at the Hilton or the MGM or he only played Caesars at the very end of working. And what happened, never mind, I'm not going to say that, but it was so, it was such a great time because we could go over to see Frank. We could go to see Dean Martin. We could go to see Anne Margaret. And Fred worked with Anne Margaret. Shirley MacLaine, he worked with Shirley. he worked with a lot of female singers, and but we'd finish the show, and he'd come off stage, maybe the first show, and we'd dash over to the Caesars or wherever, the Sahara, and we'd see a celebrity. It was a hoot, and of course, then at night, late at night, we'd be out until the wee small hours, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. But then we could sleep all day the next day.
Sure.
And this was pretty much before. We had started having kids in 1977. So after that, we had babies. But then we took an au pair with us, and she would stay in the house while we were out working and visiting and seeing talented people. It was so great. I wanted to see about getting a star for Fred on the Walk of Fame there.
Oh, right.
We have one. We have one here in Hollywood, which is marvelous. I'm so grateful. I thank God every day that we have that star. I go down many times during the year, and when friends come to town or relatives, we always have to go and pay tribute to Fred. But I'd like to get one in Vegas. I don't know if it's worth it now. People say the Strip is just a mess.
It's too overbuilt. I mean, if that's possible,
Is it?
it's just too. I mean, it's interesting, but it's way. I mean, just looking at pictures of the way it was back in the '60s and '70s, and you see it today, it's just completely different.
Yeah. I would imagine.
And there's no big stars anymore that play. They have like the Cirque du Soleil shows. They're fine, but they're all kind of the same. There's no real big, and I guess rock acts might be the biggest, names out there if they go out there. But there's no real. The hotels don't have like comedians anymore, or like a Tom. I guess like a Tom Jones might come once a year, but that type of entertainment, it's not there anymore.
Right. I hear Adele is going in, and she's going to do a Friday and a Saturday night.
Is she? Yeah.
That's how bad it is to get.
Didn't it used to be like
I would assume,
entertainers would do 2 or 3 weeks at a time?
Oh yeah, we'd always do like 3 weeks at a time, and that's 2 shows a night.
2 a night.
7
wow.
nights a week.
Oh, no night off.
7 nights a week. No.
Wow.
Never did.
I knew it was 2 shows a night. I didn't know it was the whole time. I thought maybe you got like a day off somewhere. Oh, wow.
No, we never got a day off. 7 days a week, and they paid us. They paid us well, but but not today. They can't get people to come in and see shows.
No. Too much other things people are doing now. They don't want to bother sitting in a theater for 2 hours, I guess.
Yeah. They like blowing their money, I guess. But back then they were gambling too, but they would gamble after the shows or before the shows, So I don't. Yeah, things are a lot different in the casinos today. I don't know what it's like.
The one hotel that I've stayed at several times, it seems to me, I mean, I wasn't there then, but kind of a throwback is the South Point, which has kind of an old-fashioned showroom. Have you been there, the South Point in Vegas?
Yes. Fred headlined at the South Point.
He did. He was there. Okay. That seems to be, like it might have been back in the 70s or 60s, that type of place. And they get people like Tony Orlando and, that are still performing go in there. But
Tony Orlando's still performing there?
Yeah, I check the schedule every once in a while. He goes in there a couple times a year, And they'll have comedians, but they'll have singers. Dina Martin, I've seen her show out there. She does a tribute to her dad, of course. But yeah, Tony Orlando, but of that type of act, the kind of the traditional showbiz act, that place has it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I don't know what Caesars, what they have in there now.
They had Celine Dion for a long time. I guess she did they call residencies now if you're there, for more than a couple of weeks, I guess. Britney Spears had been there, I think, but I don't know who's there now. I don't follow it.
No, I don't either.
Yeah, but just not the same. But entertainers like Fred Travalena, it's a days gone by. Unfortunately, I don't know anybody's coming up doing those being that kind of entertainer anymore.
I know. Clint Holmes, you know Clint Holmes?
I never met him, but I know of him, yeah.
Oh, my. There's a talented guy. He's godfather to one of our sons. And we're
really? Oh, great.
His twins. And, I'll have to tell you a quick story. We were in Puerto Rico, Fred had a job to go to Puerto Rico, and he was going to appear there for a week. And so we go, and he went down to rehearsal, and he walked in the room, and here was this guy up on stage singing and performing. And it was Clint. But Fred didn't know him. He never saw him, met him before. So he left, and he said, oh, I'll go back, in a little while. So then Fred went back in, and he did his rehearsal. Later that afternoon, we were in the coffee shop having a bite to eat, and this guy comes in. And he comes over to the table to say hello to Fred. And he said, and Fred said, oh, nice to meet you. He said, I saw you at rehearsal, and where are you working tonight? And he said, I'm working here. And Fred said, well, I'm working here. And Clint said, and Fred, they said, I'm not following you. I'm not following you either. and they, because they both said, each one was so good.
Sure.
And they flipped a coin to see who was going to go on first. And then the next night they switched. And they did that the whole time we were there.
Oh, so they didn't tell either that they were on the same bill until they got there.
Right.
Wow.
Right. But they switched each. One night Fred was the opening act, and the next night Clint was the opening act. It was just a hoot. And I don't remember us ever working together again after that. But Clint traveled the country just like anybody. He lives in Vegas.
Yeah, he and his wife. His wife's a performer too. I've seen her on.
Yeah.
And she does a show. So yeah.
Yes, Kelly Clinton, and she has a TV show. Yeah, she's adorable. She's a beautiful.
Yeah,
lady.
I've never met her. I've seen her TV show and clips of her. She's very good. Yeah.
Yes, she's very good.
I believe she's from New Jersey also. So she's a Jersey girl.
She's from New Jersey?
I've heard her talking about it, so she's from New Jersey too.
Oh.
Yeah.
I know that. Yeah.
But well, it's just good to remember, what it was like in Vegas in those years, and that type of entertainment. We try and keep it alive, at least as far as the music goes here. I know some places, radio stations or online are doing it, but we got to keep it going, Lois.
You bet. That's why I hope so desperately that some people will pick up and play some of this great music, because I think they'll enjoy it. People enjoy it once they hear it. So, and I know that you're a supporter, so you'll play it.
No question,
too,
yeah. Do you have a website, Lois? In case people want to, get Fred's music, is it available at Amazon, or do they have to go to your website, or how does that work?
Well, there is a www.fredtravalena.com.
I know you have that website, right? Yeah.
And but on YouTube, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube. People can go to Amazon, CD Baby, iTunes to get the music. My sons are constantly putting things up, and in fact, my son showed me something new last night. He said TikTok and something else, and I'm going. I have no idea.
I don't either.
That up.
I've heard of it, but I don't go near that TikTok.
Yeah, I don't know what any of it is.
Yeah.
But I hear that people can go on. I mentioned it on somebody's radio show, Brad Chambers, Martini in the Morning.
Oh,
here.
sure.
And one of his listeners on Zoom. We were on Zoom. The next week, she came on and said, Lois, I went to Amazon and I got it. And she says, now I know how I'm going to wrap all my Christmas presents and decorate my house by listening to Fred sing.
Oh, great.
I went, oh, how great is that? That was sweet. So that's what I'm doing, trying to keep up with Mr. Travelena's talents and notify people. He was a sweetheart. He was a very nice man. A lot of people loved him.
No doubt.
I have yet to hear any person say a bad thing about him, because he was.
Well, you couldn't.
He was a good Christian.
You'd be lying if you did.
Yeah, that's right. But he was a good Christian, and
he was, yeah.
Just a talented man at everything that he did. So it was fun.
I just want to mention, too, since we talked, you can watch Lois. You mentioned the Pacific Broadcast Pioneers. You did a nice long interview with them. That's on YouTube. So we have a similar organization down here, the Broadcast Pioneers of Florida. So we have a similar organization. But I'm glad that you were able to do that. Those are great to have available, at least an archive of those kind of interviews.
You bet. We had a little celebrity showcase going on for the past year of all the different celebrities that we had luncheons for,
Yeah.
and the people who were on the dais and talked about that celebrity. So I helped put some of that together, and it was a hoot and a half, I'll tell you.
Oh, great.
I got to talk to my friends like Johnny Mathis and Jack Jones, because Fred worked with them, so I was always around when he worked with these guys.
Right.
So they were special people that we put the clips in on them, and people can go online at the Pacific Pioneer Broadcasters (PPB) or Hollywood Media Professionals to see any and all of those luncheons.
Yeah, they're great. Great to watch.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to.
And yeah, you mentioned Jack Jones and Johnny Mathis. They're still out there. I guess they're starting to tour again, but they're still working. They're not sitting at home and doing nothing.
No. Johnny Mathis is out there, and he's up in his 80s, 85 or something.
Jack's got a new CD coming out. I check his website. I had him on a few times. I'd like to get him on again, but he's still out there.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. Yes, he is.
Well, Lois, always great to catch up with you. I'm glad we had a chance to chat today. We won't wait as long before we do it again. Well, let's do something. I know around the Memorial Day, we'll do it again, because I know Fred was very involved with the patriotic music.
Yes. He wrote several of those, so I would love to do it again.
We'll do that later in the year, but glad you're doing well. You sound great, and let's talk down the road, but have a great Christmas season.
Thank you. You too. Ho, ho, ho. I hope Santa brings you everything you want.
We're trying. Lois Travalena, our guest, and we'll continue right after this.
I'm Stan Brock. 30 years ago, I formed Remote Area Medical to help people overseas. But then we found generations of families in America isolated by poverty from the health care they need. Together, we can take dental, vision, and medical help to 1 million adults and their kids, right here at home in the United States of America.